everyone, my name is Kat Savage and I'm a professional artist, clinical hypnotherapist and well-being expert working with those in the creative arts sector. In my line of work, I get to meet some amazing, colourful people, from actors to artists, people who live their lives by their own rules, fueled by passion and determination to bring their unique talents into the world. I wanted to discover what it took for people to leave the usual 9 to 5 and hop on a dream, to capture their bravest moments and share these meaningful conversations with you, so that together we can explore the ideas, emotions and moments that could potentially change our lives too. The Brave Moment podcast begins now, in the middle of the COVID pandemic, probably the bravest moment not only for my guests, but for the whole world. So let's keep talking, have some fun, and enjoy the show. This week on the show, I talked to cartoon artist and illustrator from Toast Cartoons, Martin Peeve. Martin started his cartoon career creating animated training videos with Christian Aid and Think Consulting Solutions, where he produced visual aids for use around the world. But after a knock in confidence and a need for stability, Martin took a 9 to 5 job far removed from his beloved cartoons, which led him into a depression so severe that only taking the brave step to quit everything and start again would be enough. Today, Martin is a full-time cartoon artist and illustrator with a wonderful story to tell, which he shares with us in this podcast. It gives me great pleasure to introduce you to the dream builder himself, Martin Peeve. Martin Peeve from Toast Cartoons, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kat. It's lovely to be here.
It's lovely to hear your voice. It's been so long. How's your lockdown been?
Interesting. I think the first part of the lockdown was actually kind of strangely liberating for us. From my point of view, I'd literally set myself up freelance and finished my previous job a week before lockdown started. So I had 1 week of semblance of normality with trying to get things on the road with my drawing career, and then all of a sudden all hell broke loose and the kids were at home and Anna was at home and everything changed completely. But it has in a lot of ways been very good. For me, creatively, I've had a huge amount of time to do my work on my drawings and my illustration, but also work on doing music as well, because me and my wife both play music. And with jobs and children, we never had any time to dedicate to working on these things. And all of a sudden, lockdown gave us the opportunity to spend some time together musically and record some tunes and just have a bit of fun.
Do you know what's so funny is and I can talk about this quite connectedly, that's not even a word, but empathically with you, because obviously the Brave Moment was created in the lockdown space. And I know, just like yourself, it's an idea that's been sort of brimming around in my head for a few years, and I sort of put it on the back burner, etc., etc. And then we had this space of time. And in the creative industry, I think people have responded to it in one of two ways. They've either completely shut down because they don't have the sort of stimuli to allow that creativity, or it's amplified those creative dreams within us that have been sort of swimming around behind the scenes.
Of course. I was obviously very worried when this all kicked off, because I was thinking, is this, of all the times to start to try and take this huge risk to try and start a career doing something different, to have this happen at the same time, you sort of think, oh God, what am I doing now? Of all the times to give up on, I could have spent the whole of last spring on an 80% furlough in the garden, drinking beer in the sunshine, thinking life's great. And I'd go and quit the steady paycheck the minute the opportunity would have come along. It's just typical. And I was thinking all the time, are people going to want to get me to work on projects for them, get me to want me to design pictures and work on things, when everyone's got so many other things they're worried about? If people are worried about where their money is going to come from, are they going to want to give any of it to me? and that was obviously a concern, but and luckily I've not been out of work as such. There's always been something trundling along.
There's one phrase that sort of sticks in my mind when it comes to creativity, and it is something that my religious education teacher, shout out Mr. Ahmed, I don't know what he's doing with his life now, but he used to say when talking about different concepts in religion, he'd say, try not to be optimistic, try not to be pessimistic, try to find that middle ground and be realistic. And I think with creativity, just like any other business or any other job, when we come at it with the realism, and because you have to be concerned, you have to have a little budget in your brain for your activity. You have to obviously make money from it in the same way that you would any other job. And you do have that concern. And I think anybody that goes into creativity without the realism behind it can sometimes really, really struggle and feel their dreams crushing on them, as opposed to if you sort of steadily pace yourself, which obviously the lockdown has given to people like you and to people like me, which has been great. But I'm going to take you back in time, Martin Peers.
Okay.
Here we go. You are now a young sir, as it were.
Yes.
And I want you to tell us just a little bit about your childhood, because I know that from an early age you were hugely inspired by cartoon and animation. And I really want you to tell us a little bit about why.
Why? Oh, that's a very good question. My childhood was great. I grew up in a little village in Herefordshire called Fownhope, and my memories of growing up are lots of family holidays and playing with my sister, who I got on really well with, and I had a lot of friends in the village who I am grateful to say are still close friends now, who I was at school with and college with. I recall lots of playing in the woods and just having lots of fun. And I gravitated to, I don't know how I sort of got into cartoons, I think it must come from when you're a child, a lot of the first books you read or have read to you are illustrated. So instantly there are associations between narratives and pictures. Obviously, when you get older and you're reading books that don't have pictures, those pictures are formed in your brain. And people will always say that the books have the best pictures in them because they're the ones that spark the imagination within. But I think I certainly started obviously enjoying all the books. Any book that had pictures in it, I loved. And I just remember my childhood watching lots of cartoons, obviously starting with all things like the Looney Tunes, Warner Brothers stuff, to things like Danger Mouse and Count Duckula and Ivor the Engine and all those sorts of things that were on telly when I was a kid. But I just adored all that stuff. I absolutely loved it. I found it so inspiring. But I never got into comics or comic strips as such. I don't think I really sort of knew what they were, or I had any sort of input in those, or any take up on those, until I discovered Asterix.
Just to explain to people who Asterix and Obelix are first, because some of our younger listeners might not know.
Asterix and Obelix, it's a very French thing. Asterix and Obelix are the two main characters from the Asterix cartoon comic. They call them albums, I believe, the books. Invented or created by René Goscinny and Albert Uderzo. I think the original book was Asterix the Gaul, and it came out in the mid-50s, I believe. And it's about the adventures of rebel village of Gaulish warriors who have a magic potion brewed by the druid Getafix, which enables them to fight back and hold out against the Roman invaders. And I was absolutely spellbound by Uderzo's skill as an artist, his draftsmanship, his command of shape, and it was almost cinematic. To you could see the movement in everything, and of course there was the story, which these amazing adventure stories, which just it just took me away, and I loved it ever since. I've addictively collected all the Asterix books. When I found out they made films of them in France in the 60s, I was straight on it, wanted to see the cartoons as well, and that became my thing. I was addicted to Asterix books, and I just wanted to draw like Albert Uderzo, and was frantically every moment I got, every time I had a pencil in my hand, I was trying to draw those characters, and always starting in the same place with the nose, then the eyes, similar to Rolf Harris's style of Can You Guess Where It Is Yet? Always starting in a peculiar place of the drawing and then just drawing around that one thing, but just wanting to be able to recreate these characters as best I could. It's wonderful, absolutely wonderful.
So can you remember from that experience the first thing that you drew that sort of stands out in your memory?
I can't remember anything specific. I can just remember that I always was illustrating, and it was always incredibly important to me. And it dominated so much of my time at school, in that I would just find every opportunity with whatever work we were set to provide an illustration to go with it. Because that was right through into secondary school. I remember we were learning about Thomas of Becket, the Archbishop of Canterbury, who was murdered by the knights. And I vividly recall, I mean, obviously this is not one of the first things I ever drew, but I vividly recall this drawing of this almost like a monk getting the top of his head lopped off by a knight with a sword. Sort of, like looking up, eyes looking heavenwards as he's trying to make something sort of comic version of a rather horrific event from history.
That doesn't sound like you, Martin, of course.
No, not at all.
So here you are, like in school, and you're drawing passionately.
Yeah.
Did you have a clue back then that that's what you wanted to do for like GCSE or A level, or was it something that sort of cropped up again later in life?
No, I don't. This is one of the strange things, trying to think back on my thought processes through school. I did it because I enjoyed it. And I don't think it ever crossed my mind that it was something to make a career out of. I did like drawing my cartoons, but interestingly enough, I think I found it more liberating to be able to apply my drawings to some of the other subjects I did, like drawing pictures of Shakespearean characters to accompany my studies in English, or drawing scenes from history in history classes, than I did going into art and doing yet another still life of a bowl of fruit. I thought I had this sort of sense that I did pictures, I drew cartoons, and it was something that just always would just bubble along in the background and it would be there. And in a way, I was kind of often told that, which in hindsight, probably not the best advice to have received, because other advice I've had in years subsequent was always, you're really good at that, why don't you do it for a living? I don't think I ever sort of properly understood the jobs that are available. I mean, I consumed cartoon animations like in Disney movies, whatever it was. I consumed it with a passion, but I don't think I ever stopped to actually think, where does this stuff come from and who makes it? If you know what I mean.
It just appears, doesn't it?
It's like no, I would build Lego pirate ships. It never crossed my mind that someone in Denmark has the most amazing job in the world of building these things from scratch to say, here we go, here's a Lego set, let's sell it. I never thought there were people who you just think as a kid, you just think these things appear. I mean, maybe I just didn't have an inquiring enough mind at that age. When the credits roll in a movie, I never sit and read back and think, well, who's a best boy? What does a best boy do? What does a grip do? A dolly grip? What are these people, and how did they get into this industry? So in a way, I envy people now because of the ability to find out what there is and contact people and share things. I mean, things like Instagram, the ability to share your artwork and follow other artists and share techniques and see what's out and be able to sort of get your work in front of an audience is incredible now. It's more of a thing now than it was when I first tried to go freelance in the mid-2000s, I think. I mean, I thought we just have a website and hopefully people will find you. Now, just a few years later, it seems, the means to get your stuff to an audience is unrivaled now, and it can only get greater.
I
amazing
absolutely
stuff.
agree, and you know, funnily enough, like even with doing this job here, you know, trying to find guests like yourself and all the rest of it, and having to network. Thank God for the internet, because that has been an absolute saving grace, and the connection that we have to each other globally, you know, that is definitely one of the positives, and especially within the creative force, because it doesn't matter where you are, who you are, what you do. you can put your stuff out there on the internet and it's instantly accessible.
Of course.
And that's very, very different now than, like you said, even 10 years ago, it was a very, very different story. And taking you back a little bit in time. So what challenges did you face emotionally when your gut was telling you to do art and your head was telling you to go out and get a real job?
I think one of my biggest problems going from school and college, and then from college onwards, was not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. All my friends were heading off to, again, what I would say in inverted commas, real universities to do real degrees. And I sort of felt, I probably didn't realise it myself, but I sort of felt under pressure to sort of also be part of that gang, as it were, going off to a real university to do a real degree. I've always had an interest in travel and languages and other cultures. And I got to spend a year out in Germany, studying at university, which was a fantastic year. And it's also quite a good year creatively, because although I never lost the desire to draw. It was always there. I was always drawing pictures. And I think it was always known, Martin can if you want to, someone's got a birthday card, get Martin to do a funny picture inside it, or do a cartoon of someone, or do a caricature or something. Martin will get that sorted for you. And I think the rumour that I could draw went around when I was at university in Germany, and I was asked by a PhD student there if I could provide illustrations for a project she was doing on a play, and I got paid to do it. Not much by any account, but it was a sort of, it was a nominal fee, but it was probably my first paid gig as an illustrator. And I think it must have sparked something that lay dormant in me, that there could be some sort of future in doing illustration commissions for people, having people see my stuff and saying, hey, that's really good, I like that. Can you do something for me, please?
Yeah.
So it must have sort of laid there. But obviously I trundled through the degree, and the drawing kind of has just always been there in the background. So yes, obviously after university, I then went travelling for a while. I did a trip around the world, and the drawing thing again. It was one of those things that I think I had a sketchbook with me, and I was doing a few little drawings and cartoons as I went along. Sort of funny things I saw. I ended up, when I got back, doing a series of cartoons. It was like backpacker stereotypes, and I was ordering caricatures of all the various weirdos I met in youth hostels in Thailand and places like that. But I kind of got the idea to do something more creatively for an American friend of mine when I was in Texas. She suggested that I drew some sort of illustration of my travels, and it was funny. Some sort of milkshake shop we were in, and they had this job application process where they gave you a paper bag and asked you to decorate the paper bag, which was the most bizarre job application ever, but in a way quite an interesting one. Obviously I didn't apply for the job, but she just gave me this paper bag and said, draw on that your travels. So I started sketching out it was like a map of Southeast Asia and Australia, and then just doing little illustration cartoons of all the various things I'd done in all these different places, like a map with cartoons on top. And I got back home and then finished that off in colour. And that was sort of like one of the first sort of things I did. And it kind of just kept a little thing in my mind that maybe I could do something more with this, or maybe now's the time to try and pick up on something which I've just not been ignoring for so many years, but disregarding, I guess. Is that probably the same word? I don't really know how to describe it.
No, I totally and utterly get that, because I think also creatively, we shed skins, don't we? So creative people are sort of masters of all trades at the beginning. They know that they want to express or perform or paint or write or sing or whatever it is that you want to do, but you don't necessarily know where your niche is until much later, it seems, unless you sort of fall into something and it's suddenly your passion. It's almost as if you're passionate about everything all the time. More
recently, I'd say within the last sort of 10, 15 years, I remember someone saying to me, I'm hard at work doing whatever my 9 to 5 job was at the time, and say, do you still do cartoons? Do you still draw? And I thought, well, to be honest, no, I'm not really drawing much at the moment. And the reason I wasn't drawing much, and I sort of realised, was that, being a creative person, you need to have some sort of means to express and let that creative side out. When I'm sort of spending all my time sat at a desk or sat on a train, I wasn't having enough time to sit down with, and come back to a family life. I didn't have time to sit down with a pen and paper and draw something or produce something. It took a lot of time, whereas I could get an easy, quick, creative fix by grabbing a guitar and playing it, if that makes sense. So I almost like putting the drawings to one side, because it's a lot easier to get that fix by playing guitar for half an hour than it is by picking up a pen and then sitting, because sometimes unfortunately with drawing, you can have those moments where you'll sit in front of a blank piece of paper for an hour just going blah, 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 I don't know what to do.
That's so true.
So well, winding back to the mid-2000s, I'd come back from my travels and I was in a sort of a period of, I don't know, what shall I do with myself now? And first thing I did, I moved to London for a while. I got a job with Christian Aid. It was a temporary job at the time. And that led me to doing my first bit of freelance work, creating these animated training presentations. I was using my cartoons and putting these PowerPoint presentations together. And I got a creative partnership together with a training company called Think Consulting Solutions. And I was producing all this animated material that they were using in training conferences around the world. I thought, this is starting to take off now. This could be something interesting. And I moved to Bristol in 2006 to take part in a 3-month animation course with the Bristol School of Animation, which is part of the University of West England. And I went on this. I was really pleased to be offered this. I pretty much self-taught myself how to do basic animations. I got on this course to find myself accompanied by loads of people from around the world who were animation students and were seriously good. They were there just sort of hone their skills, as it were. I was sort of head down trying to do what I could. And then I just tried to keep, after this course finished, I tried to sort of make some sort of creative career out of it. I was getting nothing. I was getting no responses for any of my show reels I was sending out, really getting despair that I was just not good enough at what I was doing. And I was running out of work for Think Consulting Solutions. I think they'd got me to to animate their whole full package of training materials. They didn't need me anymore. I wasn't really making enough money to keep my head above water. Every month it was one of those sort of hand to mouth kind of, I am lucky if I've got something left in the bank by the end of this month. I thought, I've got to get a job, and I stumbled into a job in the rail industry because I could draw, and they needed someone to do technical drawing, which led to a full-time job as a designer doing signalling design. And that was around the time I was starting a family, and I sort of thought, well, it's actually really nice to have regular money coming in and not have to worry about anything. Now I've got a regular salary. I can get a mortgage. I can get a car. I can start getting some of the things I was never able to get. And suddenly I think the priorities had changed for a while. Suddenly I was focused on bring in the money and make a nice family home. I've got a baby here. We're getting sorted. And I guess that I didn't forget about the cartoons or anything in any way. I thought, right, okay, I'm in my 30s now. I'm in my late 20s, early 30s. I've got to give this a good shot now with this career, because this is what I need to right now. This is necessary to have the regular income and not have to worry about where this is coming. I've got other things to focus on right now. Unfortunately, as time went on, I think I was starting to just despair that I just ended up doing the wrong thing. And I think a lot of people can have these sort of realize it in moments where they wake up and think, what the hell am I doing? Why am I getting up and trekking into this office to do something that I'm really not enjoying? It's not doing anything for me. I just think, what is going on?
And it's weird, isn't it? Because for creative people in particular, or people with that kind of expression, the 9 to 5 job, which is fantastic for logical people, analytical people, those people that really thrive in those conditions. For the creative mindset, it's a little different, isn't it? Because it's almost a crushing weight. It's almost something that feels like an imprisonment, or that you're not sort of sitting in the place where you're supposed to sit. And you're absolutely right. I think a lot of creative people, especially when they're in those days of transition, when they found a partner or they're starting a family, they do have to put themselves in the way of something different.
Yeah.
And it's only when you're halfway through that you go, oh my goodness, hang on a minute, I've forgotten about myself.
Yeah, I think I did a very good job of just sort of compartmentalizing my creative impulses with a sense of this is what I've got to do now. And then I kept having these moments where I just wake up or sort of, go through the day and just think, is this it now? Is this it for the rest of my life? Is this this is the path I've chosen? And how did I end up here? You think all my other friends are doing something. They've either always wanted to do this thing and they've worked really hard to get to this point, or they're doing whatever it might be. How did I end up at this point? What decisions did I not take that I should have done earlier on that left me in this place? But of course, I was very much. I mean, it's ironic given this is called the brave moment. I was very afraid. I was very afraid to make any changes because I was frightened to be in a situation where there was no financial stability. I didn't want to jack my job in unless I was going on to something better, because that's what you have to do. You have to have something lined up to go to. You hand in your notes, and I'm only going to be here for a month longer, and then I'm off to this better thing with a bigger salary and all these. And I think so. But you can't find a full-time job 9 to 5 where you're going to be able to sit at a computer all day long and get paid lots and lots of money to just be creative. That doesn't happen. I mean, it could happen to some people who are very, very lucky, but I think even the greatest animators and artists in the world are still freelancers who are still brought in. A company will have them on retainer and call up and say, we've got a big project for the next 3 or 4 years. We need you to come in and help. But they're still not on the payroll. They're still kind of free agents, as it were. So to try and find a permanent job doing something I wanted to do, and I didn't quite know what I wanted to do anyway. I just knew what I didn't want to do.
But you did have an epiphany, though, didn't you, within that moment, and you caught yourself. And tell us a little bit about that epiphany moment.
Oh, there were several moments where I was sort of thinking I've got to do something different, and I think time was sort of ticking on. And the latest job I had in the rail industry, which was going very well, career-wise, it was going fairly well for me, just not very fulfilling. And I think I got to this point where I was hoping that I was going to get a further promotion and a pay raise, and it never happened. And I was struggling enough travelling to Swindon every day from Bristol and spending all my time seemingly on a train or sat at a desk. But I was getting more and more down about it all. And I think I had this moment where I was speaking to my sister in my lunch break, and she was saying to me, why aren't you doing more work? Why aren't you doing more drawings? I just had this moment, I thought, I just said to her, I'm just not getting any pleasure from drawing anymore. And I said, it actually came out of my mouth, I'm not getting any pleasure from drawing anymore. And I just started crying at my desk because I just thought, my God, what have I just said? What have I become? Who? This isn't me. This is someone who spent his whole life loving drawing. And I always feel like what I'm doing at the moment for my job is crushing my desire to be me. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. I just cannot do this. And I had to sort of leave the desk and disappear off to the toilet to just bawl my heart out for a while, and spoke to my boss, and he said, you better go for a bit. So I took some time, and I thought, I've got to go to the doctors because I'm just crying uncontrollably. And I got diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and stress. And I signed off work for a period of time. So you just rest, take it easy. My employer at the time were very, very good to me. I was kept on pay while I was signed off, and they were very supportive when I came back. But I just knew this isn't gonna last. This can't be sustained. And I started half-heartedly looking for a new job, knowing that I couldn't keep this particular one going. And then the realization came in. I thought, I've got to do something I've got to get back to the drawing. And I think that conversation I had with my sister haunted me, that I said what I said about what I love. So I handed in my notice at work and said, I've got to go. And it felt like, as your podcast is called, The Brave Moment, it felt like the brave moment to me, because I finally decided to take the plunge to jump from this job, not knowing exactly where I was going. I hadn't got another job lined up. I knew I wasn't going to get another job lined up as such. I had just over 3 months worth of notice period to work out, in which I frantically started trying to build up some sort of online presence for my cartoon work, and start finding some people who would want me to draw for them, and hopefully start building up some sort of career out of that. And of course, as we mentioned there, I finished my job. I had 1 week of freelance bliss, and then suddenly lockdown hit and everything went crazy. So that's kind of brings us almost up to, not quite today, to about a year ago, when this all really properly started for me.
I think, do you know what, hearing you talk so openly and honestly about that moment, it's so poignant. And I know that a lot of people, especially the artists that listen to the show, will absolutely feel what you've just said, because I think everyone I know, and I'm not exaggerating here, every single artist in whatever capacity that I know has had that moment where they've had to go into a job which has crushed them or has been a means to an end.
Yeah.
And in that job made that realization and had to fight for their art. And it's terrifying when you're told in society that in order to survive, you need a 9 to 5, you need to do this for your family, you need a mortgage, you need council tax, you need all of this stuff. And we're plowed with all of this financial burden before we've even begun. Yeah. To have the guts and the courage to go, you know what? Life is, it's more than this illusion that we're fed, and to take that jump it's a massively brave moment, Martin Peers, and I'm really, really glad that you bring it up with such poignancy and so candidness. Because candidness, is that even a word?
It is now.
And I wanted to bring up a film which I've recently watched called Soul, which is on Disney Plus. Have you seen it?
I watched it when it came out at Christmas, and I've watched it this week. I know you talk about it a lot in this podcast. I want to revise it, so I watched it again yesterday.
Yeah, it's a fabulous film. It's a little bit out there and wacky,
I think
but
it's wonderful.
Hugely imaginative, and it tells the story of this guy who, for his whole life, has dreamed of being on stage and playing music. And he sort of resigned to the fact that he's only ever going to be sort of like a middle school teacher, and that's his life. And then in this particular film, I won't spoil it too much for you, but let's just say he has that opportunity to go back and redo things. So I want to ask you now, even with what you've just told us, would you go back and change things, or would you have allowed it to play out to the moment that you're in now?
Personally, from point of view of my personal life, I wouldn't have changed anything, because every decision you make on the journey leads you to where you are right now. And from the point of view of my wife and kids and my family life, I couldn't, if I were to go back and change things, I may not have what I've got at the moment, and that wouldn't bear thinking about. But if we're talking purely professionally, yes, I wish I could go back and change things. And I'm sure, I think I wouldn't want to have missed out on my year studying in university in Germany, because that was tremendous fun. But I do kind of look back on my time at university, and at the time I was thinking, am I doing the right degree here? And wish I just had the guts to say, no, I'm not doing the right degree here. I'm just going to jack it in and bugger off somewhere else, rather than rack up a huge student debt and that I'm still paying off. Why do this to myself? Why not go and do so? Again, this idea of wishing you knew more at a time about what you could do. And I think I always knew I could draw. And I think if I had gone to some sort of art college or some sort of art school where my talents could have been nurtured and worked on more, I could have devoted more time to it, and certainly learnt more about what I could do with those skills from an earlier age. I'm in far better place to have done more sooner I suppose. And I read a quote by I think it was Ian Dury of Ian Dury and the Blockheads. I think he always wanted to be an artist, and he said a painter, and he said he got good enough at he got good enough at painting that he realised he wasn't good enough to make a career out of it. And I think that's kind of what happened to me with animation. I got good enough to know I wasn't going to be good enough to make a career out of it.
But at least it set you on that track,
certainly.
And it gave you that spark and maybe the confidence now, come hell or high water, you've got to this point now, and you're, and you really are going from strength to strength very, very quickly. And that's all down to you making that decision, making that choice that actually this is who you are, and embracing that part of you that maybe needed a bit more nourishment, when you were younger, but for necessity had to be set aside just so that you could, get your life in order. So coming to illustration later on in life, what are the benefits to your confidence? What are the benefits of starting an art form later on?
Well, it's an interesting question. In some ways, am I starting this now? I'm not starting the art form now because it's the culmination of now decades worth of work, I suppose. What I'm finding refreshing now, I think, is I've got a lot more confidence in what I'm doing. Very recently, part of my my freelance work, I joined the Association of Illustrators to sort of represent me, sort of give me some backing, help me out with all these sort of questions when I'm foraying in the world of freelance artistry. And I did a course, I think back in September now. I can't remember exactly when it was, autumn time. I did a course with them about an introduction to freelance illustration. They covered all the different aspects of setting yourself up self-employed. It was a fantastic course. One of the best things to come out of it, of course, as well, was the people I met on that course, who I've now got links with through social media, and we share a lot of our successes and ideas and sketches and things, and we're always there to give each other a pat on the back and some approval, which is always nice, because we artists always need to have someone say, yeah, you're really good. It helps us with what we do. But one of the things they said on that course was that there is someone out there who is a perfect fit for your work, and they will see it and go, you're exactly what I'm looking for. Your job is to try and find that person or those people. And I think that's very, very true, because there are so many different illustrators with so many different styles. And this goes for all kinds of things, not just illustration, be it animation, be it music and singing and playing guitar, whatever the art form might be. There's bound to be someone out there who's going to say, that's amazing, that's the best thing I've ever seen or heard. I love it, and I want you to work for me. And that's one of the things that I'm loving about the last 12 months working freelance. I think it's one of the things that crushed me in my previous job was the fact that everything I did, no matter how hard I worked, it would always get sent off to Network Rail, because I was working on the railways, and it'd always come back and say, this needs changing, that needs changing, that's not good enough, change this, come back into another meeting up in Manchester and we'll tear this apart in front of you, and this needs to get changed. And I think I feel like everything you do is never good enough. But to be sort of running my own thing, and people come to me and say they want me to do some pictures for them, they want me to do an illustration, they want me to do a commission for the husband's birthday present, or a commission for a wedding, or whatever it might be. I do that picture and I send it to them, and they say, wow, it's amazing, I love it. And here is some money. but crucially, it's that idea that I send this thing, whatever this work is, I put my heart and soul into this work. I finish thinking, wow, I'm really pleased with that. And I feel like I've creatively learned something, because I'm looking at the stuff I'm producing now compared to 12 months ago. I think I've made more strides in terms of my professional development as an artist. In terms of my abilities as an artist has improved so much, and more in the last 12 months than I think it's done since any other point in my life. And I feel like I'm making some sort of difference. I mean, in my own small way, after all these years of doing jobs which may have been financially rewarding but not rewarding in any other way, I'm now doing something where I feel like I'm sort of helping bring a little joy into other people's lives in some way. And I think that's priceless. Really
I think
is.
that, again, it's something that you appreciate a lot more later on in life, because when you're younger, you're striving, you're thriving, that, you know, you're out there for you, and it's a very, very different feeling because you feel like you have to get somewhere. Whilst when you come back to it, or when you come full circle and you commit to whatever your idea is, and you are a little bit more mature, you do reflect on it very, very differently from an emotional perspective, because you can see and you can value that joy. And it's clear that you're sparking a lot of it right now in your career.
Yes.
So talking of the last 12 months, talk me through some of the highlights that have come about purely through your commitment to this leap of faith.
Right. Well, I think the biggest highlight, and I think for me, my biggest achievement in the last 12 months is getting a book published. To have finally...
That's a huge deal.
It is
as well,
a huge deal
for an artist.
I mean, it came about purely by accident. Yesterday I was having an interview with the author of this book, and a writer friend of hers. They're both based in Florida. So having a Zoom chat because they're going to be blogging it. So I'm feeling quite the celebrity at the moment. I had 2 interviews in as many days. It's fantastic. But it came from the fact that a lot of the work I have been doing has been based around drawing people's pets, specifically drawing dogs. I started the freelancing thing about a year ago, thinking, well, how can I start getting a name for myself? How can I start getting some work? And I'd always been drawing pictures of my parents' dogs, and they have lots of contacts and know lots of people who have dogs, and they all like they've seen the stuff I do. So I started out, I'm going to set myself up as drawing cartoon portraits of people's dogs and the owners with them, and then branching out into other pets if people want me to. By some fluky chance, a lovely lady called Julia Barron, who's based out in Florida, saw my work, and she got in touch with me and asked if I would like to illustrate her book. Now, her book is called Levi Journey, An Unlikely Therapy Dog, and it's a true life story written for children of the life of her dog called Levi. And Levi was abandoned by his family. Originally lived in Turkey. His family abandoned him, left him out in the woods to fend for himself somewhere outside Istanbul. Eventually, a dog rescue group found him and rescued him, and they worked with a charity in Florida that rescued golden retrievers, and they shipped him out to the States, where he was rehabilitated and made a new home with Julie and her husband. And Julie put an enormous amount of care and attention into this dog, bringing him back, as it were, to the point where he ended up being trained to become a therapy dog. And he now works, he goes to libraries and children read to him because of his temperament and his personality. And he's a much loved and wonderful dog and great character in the area he lives. So this book tells the story of his life, from despair at abandonment to finding a happy home to finding a job as a therapy dog. This book's been a real labour of love for her. She's been working on it for a huge amount of time, been working out how to do it, learning how to write a story, to put it together. And she wanted it to be illustrated, and I don't think she ever had any idea what it would look like with the illustrations. And I think she is so overwhelmed by how good this book looked. She was actually in tears on the call yesterday, and I was sort of well up as well, because I just said, I loved working on this book, and I feel a bit of a connection to this dog and Julie as a result of having drawn the dog so many times. But to sort of have this sort of sense that I've helped her realise her dream, but from a very, very basic level. That to me, it feels like a culmination of decades worth of drawing, starting with a passion for illustrated children's books when I was a kid, then the passion with the cartoons, animations on TV, the passion for Asterix comic books, having this sort of on and off relationship with my drawings throughout most of my adult life, to suddenly getting to the point where I have now illustrated a children's book. I doubt, it would be lovely if it sets the worlds alight, but I'm not going to kid myself it's going to be the next Gruffalo or anything. But even so, to have this done, it does feel like it's like a vindication that I've made a leap, and I've got this far with it, and I'm hoping this will now be a stepping stone to take things further.
I'm do you know what? I really, really think, knowing you and knowing that, you know, the pedantic side of you, the challenging, focused, precise side of you will absolutely make that happen, because I know that when you set your mind to something, Martin, that you really do create magic from thin air.
Thank you.
And it's just wonderful to witness, and I can't wait for people to go and check that out. And again, I'll put a link into the show notes in case you want to purchase it, our American listeners. So what I want to know is, after this sort of transitional journey, this great come back around to that love of illustration and art in the way that you want it to be. Mm-hmm. If your 100-year-old self was to meet you today, what advice do you think he would give you going forward?
Oh, he'd probably say, don't mess it up. He'd probably say, don't stop now. Don't have another crisis of confidence, and don't think you can't do it. I think because I tried my hand at freelancing back in the mid-2000s and it came to nothing. And I ended up going the safe route that led to a 12-year career that wasn't really bringing me anything other than sort of despair, really. He'd probably say, you've got this far now, have the courage to keep going.
I love that answer, and he's a very, very wise old Marty Piers. And just like on the back of that, what steps do you need to do straight away to sort of keep that ball rolling? What are you going to do? What are you going to do to keep your emotions in check? And what are you going to work on to sort of keep that focus for the next 12 months?
God, that's a difficult question. I'm still trying to learn that. The trouble is, Kat, I'm still trying to learn that answer myself. I don't know. I'm winging this at the moment. I'm in a position I've never been in before. I've literally only just got a big box of books from the States, and I'm sort of just still going, wow, look, it's my pictures in a book. And still trying to get over that side of things. I'm still trying to get as many commissions on as I can. And when I say commissions, I'm talking about I want to keep drawing for people. I want people to contact me and say they want me to draw their pets, their family, do portraits for birthdays, fun things like that. Because that's sort of in the lifeblood of what I've been doing for the past 12 months. And that's obviously moved on from just doing pictures of dogs now. The most recent pictures I've done and the most fun pictures I've done have been in the last couple of months, where I've drawn a wedding present gift for a couple of friends of a client, and they are big into steampunk, and they go and sort of dress up, and so I drew these guys in their steampunk outfits, all stylized with a sort of a fictional background with airships and quasi-Victorian things going on in the background. Oh, that was fun. And of course they wanted their dog in there as well, so a dog with goggles has to go on there as well. And another commission I've just done for a client who runs a security firm. She trains and works doing door staff at nightclubs, works on doors herself, and she wanted like a jokey cartoon of herself flanked by a pair of angry looking ostriches, telling people they're not allowed into the club because of some in-joke she had with her colleagues about a drunk person who was told he couldn't come into the club because the ostriches said no. But I love illustrating these sort of random in-jokes that have very little meaning to people outside the circle. But for her, it's just, oh, this is hilarious. But I got to draw a couple of angry-looking ostriches. So this sort of stuff I'm hoping will keep going. I mean, and try and get some more work. I think one of the crucial things about children's illustration, and it helps having had kids for the last 12 years in the house, is that I have been doing a lot of reading of children's books. And one thing they have in common is there's nothing in common with them. They all have different styles. The illustrators all have different styles. And this is one of the things I think that is, I find quite liberating in a way that I probably once upon a time would have found difficult, is that I've got access now through Instagram to see the work of thousands upon thousands of artists. And I think, as I said earlier, I still compare, but I no longer despair. I don't feel like I'm inadequate. I just think what I'm doing is different. And it's trying to find your voice in whatever it is you're doing. And I feel I've got a style. I don't think it's in any way perfect. Everything I do, I'll finish it, and I'll always look at it and say, I wish I'd done that slightly differently. But I think you've got to come to a point where you say, that's the end of that project, move on to the next one.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to learn new things. I'm always trying to develop it. But I still think that there is room for this style I'm developing, this artwork. I want to share it out. I want more people to see it. I want more people to say, I really like that. I love what you're doing. And I want people to say, I'm really writing a book. I want you to illustrate it, or this is fantastic. It's kind of thing. You kind of want some sort of indication. You want your peer group to say what you're doing is good and valid, and I'm impressed with it. And that's kind of what you thrive on praise, as it were, but it's nice.
Martin, it's been so much fun having you on the show, and obviously we've alluded to your brave moment earlier on. And I just want to quickly touch back to that before I put you through a quick fire question round, because that's going to be fun. Okay. What do you think has been the biggest thing that you've learned from that journey, from that moment to where you are now? And what advice would you give to other people that may be in that same situation from the other side of that brave moment?
I think the biggest thing I sort of learned was that I should have done this a lot sooner. Well, and it's all about the bravery and having some sort of courage in your talents and what you're potentially able to do. And I think I was worried for so long that I wouldn't be able to do anything with this. I kind of kidded myself that I'm better off just staying where I am, because the whole creative world is moving ahead and moving along. I'm sort of, it's like a river. I'm sort of on the bank of that river now. I'm safe and I'm dry and I've got my shelter, and but the whole creative world is passing me by, and I can dip into it now and again if I want. Albeit to watch a Pixar movie or do the odd drawing here and there. But I think I'm safe here. I don't need to go. I don't need to go anywhere. I don't need to do anything with this. But the reality is, I should a long time ago have said, I want to be in on this river. I want to get on this and see what I can do. And I think I spent so many occasions during those 12 years on the railway. I kept saying, I wish I was doing something else. I don't think I should be doing this. I don't think this is what I should be doing. And I think I could have started this a long time ago. I could have come out of this 10 years ago. I think my advice to anyone now who would be contemplating whether they should or shouldn't do it would be try it, because you've got to try and do that brave moment when you get the chance to. When you start doubting what you're doing is the right thing to do, that's the moment when you should say, I need to make some changes. And I think even if it fails, even if it doesn't work out, there are other ways in. There's no sort of hard and fast be all and end all to this, I don't think. I don't know. I'm going on. I'm starting to ramble now. I'm really sorry.
No. Do you know what? I started welling up halfway through that when you were saying about that brave moment, just absolutely going for it and just trying it, because it is, you do recognize it. You do know that moment. Yeah. It will come and sort of warn you throughout the years, and then an alarm bell will suddenly go off and things do change, and you're absolute testament to what can happen if you answer that call. So it's a cliche to say you don't know until you try, or if you never try these things, you'll never know. But it is genuinely the case. I think that it's too easy to be frightened that you're not good enough, and I have been with most things. I think because I've always considered myself something of a jack of all trades in career, in school, whatever. I think I was always told to keep my options open, and by doing that, it meant I never got particularly good at any one thing. I seem to do lots of things I seem to be good at, but not an expert in anything. And but I think that's a creative thing. Creative people are adaptable, aren't they? You adapt to survive, and
True.
We're maybe a bit more of a sensitive group than some that have more resilience because they're more in their logic. But listening to you talk now, my heart is resonating. And you can hear me welling up. I love it. And I'm sure that other people will be listening to this thinking exactly the same thing, because they recognize it. They know what it feels like to be, trying everything and not really knowing what the thing is until you do listen to that heart and you do realize that it's there all along.
Yeah. I think it's a lot about the advice. It's a lot about the advice you're getting as well. And I think I was never, I don't think anyone ever sort of said to me, you are really good at drawing, you've got to pursue this. I was more told, you can draw, that'll always be with you, so you can do some other things. And you've always got the drawing to fall back on. And that's not how it should be. I mean, you should always realise that we've talked a lot in the show about muggle jobs. There always will be the need to do, I've got a muggle job at the moment as well as my illustration. I go to a farm down the road and I pack cheese.
Do you know, I'm with you on that. So I joined in this lockdown time when I've had a bit more time. I've been working with the Family Foraging Kitchen with Vix Hill Rider, who is one of my guests on the show. And just from that conversation have ended up being a forager for like the last 12 months, along with podcasting and all the rest of it.
Of course.
And, I actually wouldn't say that's a muggle job. I love that job. I could be a forager for years and a massive I'm enjoying
working at a cheese shop as well.
They're necessary, aren't they?
It's necessary, and also it's still you're packaging up packages of cheese to people, and they'll open it, and you're still spreading some joy. You're still spreading some joy. You're still sending things to people they're going to love. But the point is, what I was trying to get to is this idea that there'll always be something you can fall back on. We hope, but if you don't make the most of the talents you've got in some way or another, they don't get stifled. But I think you kind of forget the gifts you've been given, maybe, or forget their validity. And I think I forgot about what I had or could do for some time. And I think whenever anyone said to me, you should do something with it, I'd always have some ready excuse to it's too late for me, sounding like sort of like Darth Vader. It's too late for me now. I can't do this. I'm doing other things now. It's too late, but it's not.
It's not too late.
It's not too late.
I absolutely concur. And actually, in the podcast with Robert Garnham that's come out just before yours, we talk about this. So he was he's a comedic poet. He came to that in his 30s. He's been doing it for not that long, and he's made an absolute killing on the comedy scene, which just goes to prove that it is never too late. But maybe when it comes to falling back on stuff, let the muggle job be the thing that you fall back on and go for your dream is essentially what you're saying. And I really I'm putting my fist in the air going, yes, Martin, yes. Right. Talking of happiness and joy, I'm going to put you into your quick fire question round, Martin Pearce from Toast Cartoons. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
Okay,
I'm ready.
I need you to answer these questions as quickly as possible.
I won't. This is me. I'm going to do rambling answers. You're not going to get a quick answer out of me.
Let's try it as an experiment in humanity. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Favorite thing in your studio?
Hi-fi. Has to be. I can't work without music.
What was the last thing you listened to out of interest?
Your podcast.
Yay! That's the right answer. Correct. Favorite animal to draw?
Dog. Has to be a dog.
Has to be a dog.
I like drawing. I love drawing all animals, but dogs have got a special place in my heart for drawing dogs.
I know you make it. You draw a mean guinea pig, a mean hamster.
Oh yes, of course.
Tea or coffee?
Oh, can I say both? I need coffee in the morning and tea while I'm working. I couldn't choose. I really couldn't.
Who inspires you in your work?
Well, my original inspiration was Albert Uderzo or any of the Disney artists, like the animators like Milt Kahl, Wolfgang Reitherman and people like that. But day to day, it would be the people who I follow on Instagram. And I'm not going to get into any of the name dropping or anything now, but there's some phenomenal artists on Instagram.
And that's the best way to be, isn't it? When you're sort of like gaining inspiration, is to just spread that knife thin, baby. All right, pet peeve.
It's all car related. I think people who leave their cars ticking over and engines running all the time, people who park on pavements people who rev engines at inconsiderate hours, and white vans, because every other person in Bristol seems to have a massive long wheelbase van. They park and take up the whole bloody street, and it's a nightmare. So all car related stuff.
As someone who lives in Cornwall with very, very tiny little streets, caravans are my pet peeve. So I totally get the big vehicle. I can
understand that, yeah.
Not the people that drive them, just the vehicle themselves. Epic fail.
Oh my God! I think I don't know. I think that it would have to be the fact that I've started doing this at 40 rather than 20.
I don't consider that a fail. I think that's a discovery. What's your biggest accomplishment?
Getting a book published.
Absolutely. Favourite song that you must sing along to in the car?
A few years back, my sister introduced me to the joys of singing along to Free Falling by Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers really, really loudly in the car. And if you haven't done it before, it's hugely exhilarating because you can just go free falling, no matter how out of tune you are. It's so fun.
I'm so doing that next time I get to drive anywhere. I love it. Book that changed you.
Oh, I think there's a couple. I think one of the first books I remember getting, my dad gave me, it's 4 books in one. It's The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy trilogy in 4 parts. Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. I remember I've read that several times and it never ceases to blow my mind. That book is just so... really, really satirises the horrors of war, but also some serious comedy in it as well, and is so clever. I just absolutely love it. I'm also big into Pratchett and Discworld, and I think of his books, Night Watch is utterly spectacular, and I can never tire of reading that book. And I recently read it with Alex, my eldest son, because he's starting to pick up on the Pratchett thing from me. And we worked through all the Night Watch, all the Watch Sam Vimes series of books, and sort of culminating in Night Watch. It's just phenomenal book. I absolutely love it.
Film that impacted you emotionally.
I got a few. Dean Stanley is one. I don't know if you've ever seen Dean Stanley. Not many people have.
No.
I would recommend it, and I'd recommend it to anyone who likes dogs. It's gentle, it's comedic, and it's moving. I think that's a fantastic film. Another one that moves me, and it's almost embarrassing to admit it, but it's Mary Poppins. The bit when Bert is singing to Mr. Banks, and Mr. Banks has that realisation of how he's missing his children's lives, I suddenly realised the point of the film. And I don't mind admitting, I cried at that as well. I cried as an adult man.
I think if you're human.
As an adult man, I cried at Mary Poppins. I mean, for God's sake, what's wrong with me? But I would have to say that film, I just think it's got so many layers that I don't think it can properly be appreciated by children.
And we love you more for it. Best human quality.
I think kindness.
In a zombie apocalypse, what would you use as a weapon and where would you hide?
I'm going to suggest a tool rather than a weapon, and it's a tool which is not seen very much in these post-apocalyptic movies. I would choose a bicycle, because you never see anyone on a bike. These zombies don't move fast. We're assuming that society's all collapsed. There's no fuel anymore, no cars, whatever it might be, and yet no one ever gets on a bike and rides away. So I get a mountain bike, I ride off to the country, because you need to get yourself somewhere away from areas of population, because that's where there are likely to be fewer zombies, and I set myself up somewhere like with a tree house, so I've got a good view around. I'm assuming zombies aren't very good at climbing, so I'd have a ready supply of big hefty branches to use as a weapon. So that's where I'd hide in the countryside, and my tool would be a bike.
Brilliant answer, and very practical. I love it. Thing that makes you laugh?
So many things. Comedy generally, Bill Bailey, Eddie Izzard. I find, but also one of the other things, the advantages of having little kids is they are funny. Children are hilarious, but also some of the things they say make me laugh. And also not having children, you miss out on a whole lot of very, very good kids' TV. And I would say one of the finest things I can recommend to any of your listeners right now is get onto BBC iPlayer, go to find Hey Dougie and watch it and binge watch it and appreciate the fact that it is one of the finest things created in the last, I don't know how many years. It is a work of pure joy. It is genuinely, genuinely funny. It is as good for adults as it is for kids.
You could be like a cartoon doctor. Just prescribe cartoons.
Prescription. I would prescribe you 6 episodes of Hey Dougie. Come back and see me tomorrow.
Thing you never say to a cartoon artist.
You'd never say, that looks pretty good, but can you make it look a bit more realistic?
Thing you should say to a cartoon artist.
That is fantastic. Here is some money. I'll call you tomorrow with another job.
And finally, if you were to be reincarnated tomorrow, what 3 memories would you want to keep about this life?
Oh, my word. I would take my wedding day. I would take my 40th birthday last May, because funnily enough, although it was a lockdown birthday, we did an outdoor gig in our front garden. We set up all the instruments and amplifiers. All the neighbours came out to watch, and we played for about an hour and a half, just doing songs and everyone singing along. And it was just absolutely brilliant fun. And my 3rd memory, it has to be something family related, and I think it would probably be our holiday in France in 2018 when we travelled down through France and back up again and went to Disneyland and went to the beach and went to Puy de Dôme and went to Bergerac and all these cool places, and just a really nice time with the family. So it'd probably be that.
Martin Peers on Toast Cartoons. You've survived your quickfire question round. Here's your solitary clap.
Yay!
Yay!
Go me!
Go you! So before you go, obviously we are coming out of lockdown now, gradually, slowly tentatively.
Going, yeah.
But what advice would you like to give to the world right now?
The world in general. I don't know. Chill out. Watch Hey Dougie. That's my advice to the world. Watch Hey Dougie. Binge watch Hey Dougie, and that will solve all the problems in the world.
The cartoon doctor has spoken the world. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been such a joy to speak to you. It really genuinely has. And
thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. If people are interested in what you're doing, where can they follow you? What are your social handles?
Search for Toast Cartoons. I've got a website, Toast Cartoons, .co.uk. I'm on Facebook at Toast Cartoons and on Instagram as well. You search Toast Cartoons on social media and on the internet, and you will find me.
Thank you so much, Martin.
Thank you so much, Kat.
Bravery comes in all shapes and sizes. Hearing how Martin's creativity and imagination literally saved him from himself is most definitely one of the bravest things a mind can do. Creatives are told time and time again that what we do isn't as valid to society as other more, and I put this in air quotes, constructive jobs. And we are told it so often that some of us start to believe it. Martin believed it. I believed it, and my poor husband, who is a full-time drummer, became a car salesman for a while because he believed it too. But what some fail to understand is that the artist's job is to deconstruct things, to peer behind the curtains of society and remind you about what lays underneath. So, of course, a more logical route is stifling to minds that need the space to ponder, philosophize, and respond to stimuli in a different way. This may look like staring into space, doodling, collecting materials, reading a lot, standing on your head, tapping a foot in time with a drip from a tap, harmonising to car alarms, or colouring in a shoe. In my case, it often looks like a bomb has exploded on a table, which may to people around me look like disorganisation, but is in fact a magic hat that I'm about to pull a white rabbit from. Martin, like all artists, has his own unique style and originality. And sometimes, if you have an original style, you can question it against other artists who create work you deem to be better than yours in some way. But in the process of comparing, you have 2 choices. You can either give in to the imposter ego who may tell you that you will never be good enough, or you can decide that what you have to give, only you can produce, and that's what makes it special. Martin has learned that there is always someone out there who will appreciate his art. There are currently 7.9 billion people living on the planet, so I think it's fair to say that there is room for your work to be discovered by at least enough people to make yourself a career out of it. The only difference between those that succeed and those that give up is that those that succeed keep going. They keep producing work no matter what, and they don't waste their time comparing their work to other people's because they know with all their heart that this gift they have is worth something and it can be traded for in this world. If you produce art, you are an artist. What we forget so easily is that art in all its forms is the foundation for everything we have, from the buildings that people work in, to the car you drive, to the device you are listening to this podcast on right now, to this podcast. We create our own world, and we are the ones that can reimagine the rules in that world daily. Let's personalize that for a moment. Repeat after me. I create my own world, and I can reimagine the rules in my world daily. Now write that down and stick it in a place you can see it every day. We are all responsible for how we choose to live in this world. Even if you've been dealt the roughest hand, you really do have the choice to change things if you can find the energy or find the help if necessary. You may have to choose life every day, and that might be a struggle, maybe more than your friends will ever know or see. But it is worth fighting for. Trust me on this. You don't have to surrender or resign yourself to misery. That is an illusion that you're often told cannot be broken. Did you know that those that are told they are mildly or moderately depressed by a professional are more likely to remain so or even worsen in the following years? Whilst those that are told that they can feel better and are given positive mental exercises and therapy to stimulate new neurological programming will recover in 3 to 6 months. The power of the brain's ability to redesign the mind and its own neurological pathways is severely underestimated. But with the will to change, anything, literally anything, is truly possible. Even the act of just going through the daydreaming process of contemplating who you want to be literally changes your brain. On that note, try this exercise. Draw a circle in the middle of a piece of paper with the words, "My world," in the center. Imagine the current rules of your world. This could be things you believe to be true that may need questioning, such as, "I will never be a good artist because I'm too old to learn," to "Avocados on toast make me feel amazing." Draw lines from the center circle outwards and attach these rules for the way you currently live in smaller bubbles surrounding that circle. You can add as many or as little as you like, or just focus on the big rules that run through your mind every day, like, "I can't leave my job or else I will lose my house," or "If I eat chocolate, I will get fat." Once you've finished, it's time to reimagine and revision your new rules. Take one of your old rules and write a solution in its place. So, "If I eat chocolate, I will get fat" could be, "If I add beautiful, rich cacao powder to a healthy smoothie, chocolate will help me become healthier." Or, "I can change my job at any time. I just have to look for one that better suits my personal needs. I'll make that a priority every day this week." Or, "I'm too old to become a great artist" might be, "I have 20, 30, 40 years of life experience that will add depth to my art and influence the next 20, 30 or 40 years that I will be producing it." Decorate your new mind map and pick maybe 1 or 2 new rules to really work on this week. Remember, every time you reaffirm your new rule with action and repetition, your brain will begin to see it as a new and necessary thing to remember, and eventually it will literally replace your old network of thought pathways with new ones, because in this new world of yours, This new neural information is what the brain thinks it needs to remember in order to survive. I highly recommend the books Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza, Switch on Your Brain by Dr. Caroline Leaf, and The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, PhD. And if you're curious to see a new neural pathway being created in the brain, I'll put a YouTube link into the show notes for you to see this amazing occurrence in our powerful grey matter. Martin is proving to himself daily that you don't have to follow the usual footsteps in the race of life. If you know what makes you happy, even if it's a little different to other people, you can, nay, must make space for it in your life. The self-saboteur may say you are too busy, that you don't have time, or it's ridiculous, childish, or even foolish to indulge in your creative art, whatever it may be. But I'm here to tell you, with my best counselling head on now, that it can save you a ton of money in therapy sessions if you can just find a way back to fulfilling your inner child's dream. You never know, it may be something you can do with the whole family if you ask them, and it may give you something in life that you didn't even know you were really missing. Get yourself a t-shirt and have "Be More Like Martin" printed on it, just to remind yourself that you absolutely can do what you love if you're a little more daring and a little more positive. As Joe Dispenza says in his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, when feelings become the means of thinking, or if we cannot think greater than how we overwhelmingly feel, we can never change. To change is to think greater than how we currently feel. To change is to act greater than the familiar feelings of the memorized self. You can and have the power to change your internal state. You don't need the external world to provide you with a reason to feel joy, gratitude, appreciation, or any other elevated emotion. It's all there waiting for you deep within. You just have to be a little bit brave, take a dive, and find your new treasure map. Next week on the show, we speak to the master of curiosity and wildly original poetic art, Ross Bryant, about his adventures in the world of spoken word. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the show. If you have a spare moment now, please like, subscribe, and tell me your thoughts in a review on Apple Podcasts, which will really help other people like yourself to find the show. Of course, you can also share the show with your friends by following us at the Brave Moment Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, or on Twitter at Moment Brave, or just follow the Linktree on all of our social media platforms. It's been so wonderful to have you all here with me again. Please get in touch with your own stories, and remember, your brave moment starts now.